Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at MedComms Networking.com. So information services resources for people who work across the globe in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and so on. At the moment, I'm having a bit of fun, as I do from time to time. I'm chatting to people across the globe in different roles within the business to hear about their personal journeys, their MedComms stories. So today, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Kristen. Kristen, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Just tell us who you are and where you are, and we'll go from there.
Well, first, thanks, Peter, for inviting me to learn a little bit about my journey in MedComms. My name is Kristen Oeltjen-Bruns. I am the Executive Director of Publications at the Healthcare Consultancy Group, and I've spent 20 plus years, I won't say exactly how many at this point, but 20 plus years working in the MedComms space across really all of our disciplines, publications, medical affairs, promotional, med ed. So I've dabbled in a little bit of all of the areas in MedComms.
I have to admit, I didn't hear whether you said where are you based?
I'm based in the United States. So I live in Pennsylvania and I work
Yeah,
primarily remotely. Today I'm in our New York office.
I'm with you. Okay, great, thanks. So look, let's go back to the beginning. I'm interested to know how you got into the business. Where did you start? What were you doing at uni, and how did you get into MedComms?
So yeah, a great question. I have a bit of an untraditional background in that I studied English literature and have a Bachelor
Okay,
of Arts in English Literature from the University of Pittsburgh. While I was at the University of Pittsburgh, I was also a writer at the Pitt News, which was the college newspaper.
okay,
And when I graduated from college, was recruited essentially into an entry level role at a medical publishing house. And that's really how I got into the medical slash pharmaceutical sector of work and had worked there for about a year in inside sales. And what does that
all right.
mean? That means I sold classified ads in medical journals, which was a very humbling experience to get your start. And it was during that time I was actually contacted by a MedComms company that was looking for entry level roles and interviewed, and that's how I landed at my first MedComms job about a year after college. Had finished up, and it was called Ingenix Medical Education. It was part of United Healthcare at the time in the early 2000s. No longer exists today, but that's
Great.
really where I got my start. And like I said, started at an entry level role in publications, specifically really learning the space. And this was so long ago that we didn't have online submissions. We submitted manuscripts and triplicates with massive reference packages, and FedEx and even abstract submissions looked
Right.
different. And we were still producing oral presentations on 35 millimeter slides at that time.
Okay, so let's just be specific. Help me a little bit. So you've done your ad sales year, which I would imagine was interesting. You're coming into a med ed agency at an entry level. Was that on the account management
Yeah,
side?
on the
Okay,
account
okay,
management side. So,
okay,
and started in the oncology space
okay.
at the
So
beginning.
just thinking back to those early days, what were you doing on a sort of day-to-day basis, as it were?
Oh, a lot of administrative, types of tasks. Pulling, we had an actual library of journal articles or journals where, I'd be copying references, creating reference packages for writers, looking up the specs for journal submissions, managing status reports for our client meetings, those types of responsibilities. And it was probably about, I spent probably about 2 years really learning what it was that we did in MedComms and the types of services that we provided to our pharmaceutical companies, and then started, moving outside of just publications. I started working on advisory boards. I worked on some investor meetings during that time, which was very interesting. So my responsibilities and the breadth of the work started to expand the more that I began to advance. And then probably about after 2 years, I started going to client meetings
Right.
and really starting to work on tactical planning, the strategic considerations that go into things like pub plans or medical education plans. that evolved over time.
Okay. Okay. And then you've developed up the account management type side of the business, haven't you? Just take us a little bit beyond those first couple of years then. So what's happening then?
Sure. So I had an opportunity to join basically a startup MedComms company. The president of Ingenix had left and started her own MedComms agency, and I was like the seventh person to join the
Oh, right.
company, and really kind of grew up in my career, if you will. And that's where I started, in a management role, and I became responsible for the account management and client services team while I was at that agency. And I was there for 7 years. And really had a great run. I was an account director, then a group account director, and then, like I said, became responsible for managing the department while I was there. And we were working at the time, you can still work on CME and other areas of business. So it was the time that CME split off,
Right.
from the type of work that we did. So we no longer did that. And that's when I had the opportunity to get my feet wet in the commercial space, which was an incredible experience. And I worked in the commercial landscape for about 2 years on an Alzheimer's disease product. And that was great fun. I really enjoyed that. So different than working on the pubs and the medical affairs side of the business. And then, like I said, I was there for 7 years, and had really kind of got my footing around strategy, and some of the higher level thinking that goes into the work that we do in MedComms, and working with client partners, and really work to hone my client partnership skills, and then joined Nucleus Global for about 7 years, and had a great experience at my time there, really working, particularly to service one of their oncology clients for many years. And I was the team client services account management lead during that time. And then while I was there, I was given the opportunity to head up a new agency that was created under the Nucleus umbrella to lead a specific client business. And I did that for 2 years. And that's really, where I think that I had the opportunity to really begin to elevate in my career, and kind of really see the opportunities that could be in front of me more kind of for the long term. I really understood the business, understood the importance of client relationships, understood the importance of team dynamics, and creating a healthy environment for a team to be successful, which I think is so critical to how we show up for our client partners. And worked in that role for 2 years, and got to learn the business from another perspective, in terms of managing a business from a financial perspective,
Yeah.
from resourcing perspective, just so many different elements of what goes into running a business behind the great teams that we put in place from a MedComms perspective. And then, eventually ended up here at HCG, where I was leading ProEd, and I was the agency president up until our recent announcement of coming together from 7 agencies to one agency as HCG. And so now I'm in this role, specifically to manage strategy and transformation in the publications landscape, which is an area that I'm certainly passionate about, and have a lot of experience.
Okay, so there's a couple of interesting points just to bring them out. I'm interested, frankly, in the fact that you had a BA in English literature to begin with.
Mm.
And typically within and around medcoms, most of us have life science background, sort of thing. Just what's your reflection? I mean, at the end of the day, how much of a has it caused a problem for you? Have you found that more challenging? Have you not? Is it? I don't know. Just what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd always be the first in the room to say that I'm not a scientific expert. I've been really fortunate in my career to work with people who are scientific
Right.
experts and who have helped to educate me. So, I'm smart enough to understand the basics of science, and I can carry on conversations and understand, a mechanism of action and the potential impact that a drug can have on a patient or in the, during the course of a disease. So I've always gone to my scientific counterparts to help me understand the things that I need to know in order to be an effective team leader. Um, and I've just been really lucky there. I think the skill sets that I bring to the table are different, but they complement those skills. And that's allowed me, to be an effective team leader, a great communicator, both internally and with external stakeholders. Those are my strengths. That's what I'm great at. I'm great at comprehension. I'm great at communication. So, bringing multiple people together. We all work in team-based environments in MedComms. I've been able to utilize the skills and the strengths that I have in the industry, and think I have a pretty good success story. And
you've gone a long way with that, so that's obviously
yeah,
successful. Just that, again, just to dwell on just for a moment, if I turn this around and ask a blunt question, you're running a sizable organization now. If you're focused on the account management, client services side, if you're overseeing that side of the business, do you see? I suppose what's your view on how important it is to recruit people who have a life sciences background as opposed to no? Do you see what I mean? I mean, because
yeah.
you haven't and you've succeeded, do you then go, well, it doesn't matter? Or do you actually still think more of the people coming into your business will have a life sciences background? Do you see what I mean?
From an account management or client
Yeah,
services
that's the
perspective, I
side I'm
don't
thinking.
I don't think that the life science background is necessary.
Right. Okay.
I think that there's advantages, to having that background certainly, and I think that learning kind of the product strategy might come a little bit easier to those people who have scientific backgrounds, but it's not the first thing that I look at when
No.
I'm looking at a resume or when I'm having a conversation with somebody. It's certainly not the first question that I ask. I'm more interested in behavioral types of leadership, and follow through and proactivity and things like that, which again, I feel really complement the scientific team that you're working in partnership with. So we have a separate function of and groups of scientists with advanced degrees. And obviously we do that for a reason. So
Yeah.
I look for people on the account management and client services side that are going to complement the skills that we already have from a scientific perspective.
Which makes sense. I think it's worth spelling that out.
Yeah,
That
for
there
sure.
are opportunities for non-scientists and so on. And the other point I was going to pick you up on was you started in ad sales, which is quite or can be quite a challenging sales environment. Again, one of the things that people ask about account management, client service type roles is how much of it is sales. How
I
do you answer
never,
that?
yeah, it's a great question. I have never looked at my career in MedComms as though I had a sales job.
Ah,
So it's a really interesting question that you ask. Whereas when I worked at the publisher, it was a sales job.
okay.
I think the success that I've found in my career has been in large part because of the teams of people that I work with. And when you do a job really well, it sells itself to some degree.
Yeah, yeah,
So that I think I've found a lot of success in organic growth because of, the quality of deliverables that you're putting out, the team chemistry that you're creating, I think is really important. And clients can see that and they can feel that and they gravitate to teams that have great chemistry. And then generate a collective great chemistry. So I've never really felt like I've been in a sales role, maybe with the exception of when I stand in a room to pitch and try
yeah,
to
yeah.
convince a potential client that we're the right partners to select for an opportunity. But I think when you're really passionate about what you do, it just doesn't feel like a job, or I don't know if I'm articulating that well, but I've just never felt like I'm in a sales role.
It's
It's just,
interesting, isn't it? I mean, I have hear people talking about it, and I've been part of these discussions. You don't find many medcoms agencies with cold calling sales people
yeah,
sort of thing. You have account managers and business development people, and it's about organic development and supporting an account and growing the account. Again, let's not go any further than that. It's just interesting to hear your perspective on it, but also to be making that point that that these account management roles are not knocking on doors as such. I think it's just people aren't always sure about that from the outside. So you're obviously now in a senior position in a large organization. Just out of interest, have you got a reflection or two on how MedComms has changed and is changing at the moment? I mean, well, that was interesting. It just watching your face there, because there is a
Yeah.
lot of change going on at the moment, isn't there?
So much change. And earlier in our discussion, I had reflected on when I used to submit manuscripts in hard
Mm,
copy,
mm,
the pace at which we work now and the volume that we work now, it looks so different than it did 20 years ago. But, the rise in the role of medical affairs, particularly in the last 5 years or so, and how that is, looks so different than it did 10 years ago, has been a really interesting evolution to watch. One of the things that I'm particularly excited and passionate about is how the patient stakeholder is becoming more of an important audience member in the work that we're doing for MedComms. I love that we're now kind of focused a bit more on the real lived patient experience in our work and finding ways to represent that, because that's what resonates with
right.
HCPs. Um, so I love that. I'm also really excited about and a little nervous, I guess, about what artificial intelligence will mean.
Right.
But I think it has, the potential to really change medicine and healthcare if we are using it in a way that is responsible. So there's a lot of dynamics happening in the industry right now, and I think about, maybe 10 years or so, 10, maybe 15 years left in my career, how different things will look in that time. But certainly when I started in the industry 20 plus years ago, I never would have thought that artificial
Mm,
intelligence
mm,
would be something that keeps me up at night,
mm.
or gets me out of bed in the morning because I'm excited to have a conversation about what it might mean for our business and the work that we do for our clients. So, I mean, just so much change. And also, the other thing that comes to mind, although it's a bit of a dated topic at this point, but social media and amplification of messages through social media and what that looks like and how we use social media as a tool to understand sentiment. Um, but then, of course, there are some compliance challenges that come along with social media as
Sure.
well, which is, can be a thorn
Aren't
in
there
our
always?
side.
But no, it's fascinating, and I think we could probably talk a lot more about how things are changing at the moment. I mean, both of us
Yeah,
have been around in medcoms for quite a while, and we've seen some big changes. But it's exciting, isn't it? And there's lots of different ways in which people are working with content and different formats and different audiences and all sorts, which makes it a very exciting business to be part of. I guess that's the bottom line. We both agree with. Yeah. Okay. Look, Chris, it's been absolutely fantastic chatting to you. I appreciate just hearing the insights into your story and so on. But
sure.
just for the moment, then I'm just going to ask you to say a quick goodbye, and we'll wish everybody some luck. But I can say, I think that if anybody wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn, is an easy way they can reach out and talk to you. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much, Kristen. Take care.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Peter.